Ever seen a business card that can make your guitar sing? Well, Steve from Demedash Effects has created just that. In today's episode, I'm going to be building a guitar pedal from Steve Demedash's business card. Stick around to the end and you'll find out how you can win this Overdrive pedal for absolutely free. When Steve sent me this business card, I was absolutely blown away. What a great idea. A little tiny business card that fits in your wallet, but also brings tone. I love it. I wish I'd have thought of it myself. So this is a real fun one for me. I can't believe I'm making this video. However, here we have my wallet. And inside, well, apart from this, fun fact, I've been carrying this little poker chip round since about 2018, I think it was. If Todd from the Guitar Knobs could confirm or deny that. But as you can see, it's been through my washing machine several times. It was a keyring. But that's not why we're in here. We're in here for this. Oh man, check this bad boy out. So this is a business card from Steve Demedash, Demedash Effects. He sent me this over and it's actually a working PCB. I can't believe it. I think it's amazing. So it's either a credit card, a business card, or is it? No, it's an overdrive pedal. Get in. So today we're going to be putting this together. Now, I was going to use this enclosure, which is Kawasaki green over shell pink. Bit aged. I was going to put some cool artwork on it, and then I thought to myself, I can't do that. I need to do something with Steve's artwork on. So he kindly sent me these stickers over, and I think I'm going to position this videotape on there. And the relevance of that is, of course, if anyone's followed me for any length of time, you'll know that I love the Demedash videotape Echo. Please check them out. They're absolutely fabulous, and that's where the videotape thing comes from. But I'm going to position that probably like that. And I know that this angle thing is going to really annoy some people, just like my offset stomp switch. So we're going to put the enclosure to one side. And we're going to focus on this beauty. I mean, come on. What a great idea. So the plan is to go through each value on here, one by one, and just plug them in and solder them in and see where we get to. I'm going to start off with the resistors and then we'll go on from there. Okay, so first value resistor on, starting from the left, is a 10k. Now I'm sure there's more than one 10k, so I'll count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I count 5 10k resistors. I'm going to go ahead and source them out now and see what cool ones I can find. Actually, while I'm on the subject of cool components, Steve actually gave me some mods to try with this. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to build the circuit that's on here because I love it so much. The idea is just fantastic. And I tell you what, it's one hell of a circuit board. It's quite thick, and if this is how his actual pedals are built, which I know they are because I've been inside them loads, no offense, Steve, they're fantastic. So anyway, 5 10k resistors, let's go. That's an epic fail on the first component. The only ones I have to hand since unpacking my workshop, apart from digging through a huge box that my buddy Warren sent me, which I'm really not tackling the amount of resistors that are in there. Apart from that, I've only got these, and all right, they're larger than normal. They're not like quarter watts and anything. I think they're 1 watt or 1 watt resistors, but they're the only 10k's I've got to hand. So I'm going to go ahead and fit them on the board. There we have our 5 10k's fitted to the board. Next up is going to be 1k, and we've got 1, 2, 3 of them. So for 1k's I'm doing a bit better. So I've got these Dale resistors. They're pretty cool, not too cheap. I quite like how they look. Yeah, there's our Dale resistors now fitted. The next value is going to be a 33k, which is situated just here. Now this one almost caught me out. Cheers, Steve. However, I looked through my vintage stash and I had this bad boy, which, I mean, the leads are a little bit thick, so I'm going to have to get creative, but it is 33.2k, which is bang on the money. And in my mind, it's close enough for government work, as they say. So to get these leads in, I'm going to have to do my little trick of cut them to length and then give them a crush with the flat nose pliers. this is where having a Nipex snips and pliers and stuff really comes into the tone. We'll give it a crush with that on both sides, and then I have shown this before, but you kind of cut at an angle like so. So you kind of cut a triangle, not kind of cut a triangle, you do cut a triangle, sort of point into it, and then that way that can slide into the thinner hole, and we get to use a ridiculous size component in a PCB that's not meant for it. Get on. I'm going to go ahead and get this soldered in. As ever, I run into a slight problem soldering in that massive 33k resistor, and that was, it was sitting too high off the board. So when I tested it out inside the enclosure, it would have fouled the lid, so that was no good. So I have just soldered it on the bottom side. It's a bit of a shame to hide this massive carbon comp. It's vintage, you know, I do normally like to have them on show, because we all know we hear with our eyes, right? But there's not a lot I can do about that, because I want it to fit inside this enclosure. It's got to sit on top of the pots as well, so there was really no choice there. On to the next resistor, which is a 39k. Now this was a struggle, and I think the closest I'm going to get to it is an outer spec 47k Dale resistor and a 150k new resistor, if you like. I'm going to just piggyback that onto the back of there, and I think this is going to be the right value. So let's get it all, well I'll solder them together actually, and then we can measure it and make sure it's going to be as close as I can physically get it. Some interesting values on this one that I've not actually used before, so this is how vain I am, right? And I say vain with brands and stuff. I'm fitting that resistor to the opposite side as the Dale logo, so then the logo is still on show. Wouldn't wear branded clothing, but I'll do that. Anyway, I'll get that sorted now. So I've soldered our 150k resistor piggybacked on the back of an outer spec 47k resistor. I'm just going to test it now and see if we can get to 39k. Right, 37.3. So I need to find 1k. I'm going to go and see if I can get a 1k resistor to make up the difference. I found a 1.2k carbon comp resistor in my stash, an old one. I think it's meant to be a 1k, but it's out of spec, but we'll take it. So let's see, it is at 1.198, so 1.2. And this is a 37.3, so that'll take us to 38.5, a little over 38.5. That's as close as I'm going to get, I'm afraid. So I'm going to go ahead and solder them into that slot there. Yet again, I've had to go underneath the board for this resistor network, because it's a little bit too big and it's going to foul our enclosure. At this point, I feel like I'm just going to end up using a different enclosure, but I hope not. Let's stick with it. So next on the list, I'm looking at a 22k, and we finally have a resistor that's going to fit on the board. This old carbon comp 22k. I'm going to give the legs a clean, because for some reason they always get covered in crud. That, and the legs even fit through the holes as well. I'm doing well here. Oh, not so well there though. Right, it's going to be a bit of soldering gymnastics to get round the ones that are fitted under the board. Well done, Joe. Do you know, I was having a conversation with someone on the YouTube comments of one of my videos, the Overdrive video today, and I was just saying how I like to make jobs awkward that don't need to be. Well, I'm doing that right now. Steve's built this amazing little board that, you know, should just be populate, plug and play, and there's me trying to make it hard for myself as ever. Right, there's our 22k resistor in, and I make the next resistor being 1 meg, and there's 2 of them. Now I do have handily these small carbon comp 1 megs that I use for my anti-pop resistors. so they can fit this bill, and I can even lie these ones flat, I believe. So look at that, not only am I finding ones that fit through the board, but they're even fitting through the board properly. Ha! If I can squeeze it past the massive carbon comp on the other side, that is.
A few inches later.
And I think after this, the last resistors to go in there are 4.7k, which I think I've got some small old resistors there. I think they're possibly Philips branded, but we'll see. I use them for my anchor drives. So there's our two 1 meg carbon comps in there, and next we'll do our two 4.7Ks. And this is what I'm going with for the 4.7s. These are real high precision resistors. For some reason, these are ridiculously, well, I know why, it's because they're high precision, but they're ridiculously expensive. They're like £3 or £4 each for the resistor. I know that doesn't sound a lot, but when you're considering that a regular resistor is about 10 pence, it's mental. Anyway, I like how they look, so I'm going to use them. I usually use these in my anchor drives, and again, I think they might just fit through the holes as intended. They're going to sit a little bit high on the board, but I can live with that. I think when Steve sent me this business card, he probably didn't intend for me to butcher the circuit like this, so sorry about that, mate. So our two 4.7Ks fitted. Next we've got this Philips resistor. It is a 470K. Generally I use these ones on my Range Masters. Hopefully, the legs are usually a little bit thick on these ones, but I'm hoping it's going to fit through the hole just about. And that should be all of our resistors now in place. Next we're going to move on to the capacitors, and I'm going to start off with the smaller value ones in the center, because these 1UF ones, I have a feeling, well, I don't have a feeling, I know that Steve will have laid this out the way it is. So then you get the box film capacitors for the 1UF. Now I don't know if I've reclaimed any of them recently, but I may not have. I may have to lathe my 1UF caps here and just run leads over, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I think first of all I'm going to do this 470PF, the two of them, 470PF caps in the center here. Well, I was hoping to find something a little bit smaller for these 470PFs, but I've got these silver mica ones. I'm just gonna have to go with them because that's what I've got. So again, the legs did not want to go in these holes, so I had to do the squeeze and clip method to get them in there, but now that they're in, I'm actually quite pleased with how they look on the board. The next caps I'm going to fit are going to be 47NF caps, which are just above over here, and I'm going to use tropical fish caps. Of course I am. Here's some I shaped earlier. I've got two of them. I'm going to go ahead and try my best not to snap them. Oh, can you believe it? I was just saying I'm going to try my best not to snap them as I put them in. Okay, so I'm not going to be using all tropical fish caps, but I'm going to try and use at least one tropical fish cap. While I was squeezing these two tropical fish caps in amongst there, I did notice that there was a 4.7K resistor missing. That was the one I'd spotted before and couldn't see. Thank you to everyone who's screaming at the screen and telling me where it was before. It is now fitted. What is going to be next? I think next we're going to move on to our two electrolytics here, so that then I know exactly where I'm going to go with my 1UF caps that I'm going to run the leads round and probably situate them on the board here. Electrolytic wise, we've got C11 over here is a 47UF cap, and I'm going to use this Samsung cap, and then C10 is 100 UF, and these are my preferred electrolytics, the JB caps. I'm going to use that over here. Before we go ahead and fit the most difficult caps, the 1 UF caps, I'm just going to fit the 100 NF cap that goes in this slot right here. And just to make life easy for myself for once, I'm going to use this ceramic box cap. That'll be a nice easy fix, and that should just slot in right at the front there, and then it's not going to get in the way of this space here, which I'm going to use with my non-polar 1UF caps. I gotta say, I hope Steve's a good sport about me butchering his nicely planned out measured board with all my massive components. He's going to be sitting there thinking, what a heathen. There we go. So next, we've got these box cap spaces there for C3 and C7. They're both 1UFs, but instead of that, I'm going to use my preferred Elner 1UF non-polar caps. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some double-sided sticky pads on the board with a bit of glue, and I'm going to glue them down there, and I'm going to run the leads with a bit of heat shrink around them to go in these two slots here, one there and one there. Apologies, Steve, I will be going over your email address and website. I know this is meant to be a business card and I'm kind of messing it up, but there you go. There's our 1UF capacitors now fitted. That was a bit ridiculous, but they're on there now. Next, I'm going to wrestle with, and what I didn't really think about, much like most of this build, is the IC socket. So it says there that it's a TLO72, which are great sound in ICs. However, I'm going to socket it so then I can try and swap it out and give it a little test with something else as well. Now, I'm going to have to try and have a fight with this and try and get the socket in there. Get on. Actually, all in all, that socket was pretty easy to fit. Quite happy with how that went in there. Now I'm going to move on to the 1N4148 diodes. As I've mentioned in countless other videos, these 1N4148 diodes are actually pretty good. I think people undervalue them because they're so cheap and readily available, but they've been on hundreds of things that you've heard countless times over, and the amount of boutique pedals that use these and then goop them. I'm thinking of something like the Vemuram. I'm sure the Jam Ray uses these and then goops them. It's insane. They're just such good diodes. Now, they are polar, i.e. you need to get them in the right way. So the little black line on the diode you can see there needs to match up with the black line on the PCB. Now these, looking at it without measuring, look like he's stacking two together. So D1 and D2 are clipping one half of the signal, and D3 and D4 are clipping the other half of the signal. I could be wrong there because I'm not measuring it out and I have no clue how this circuit works. I haven't even tried to figure it out yet. But I'm going to go ahead and fit them in there as best I can. There we have our 1N4148 diodes fitted. Next on the list is a 1N5817. I believe that this one up here is going to be used for polarity protection. I'm not too sure what this one down here is used for. Maybe stop spikes in some sort of, I don't know, electronic spike. I don't know what they're used for. However, I haven't got them, so I am going to go with my tried trusted 1N4007s. I don't know if they're a suitable replacement. They're okay in protection wise for like reverse polarity protection. I don't know if it's going to be okay for what Steve intended in this circuit. He did send me some build docs, which I read a while ago and then promptly forgot about until right now. Anyway, I'm going to go with these and then we'll see what happens when we test the pedal. Okay, so for Q1, the transistor, it calls for the 2N5088, which are known for being low noise and great transistors. However, I haven't got one. Fantastic. So what I have got is a, can I get it in focus there? A BC183LB. Now, these are great for fuzz facers. I imagine they're probably not what Steve is going for because, you know, it's probably got a higher noise floor and whatnot, but it has got the same pin out. And I do have it in stock, so that's going to be a winner for me. So we'll try it with that and there, and just keep in mind that it's not a true reflection of what Steve was going for with this with this pedal. I bet by the end of this he's wishing I kept it in my wallet. Right, I'm going to go ahead and tidy that up. There's all of our wire added to the board. Next, we're going to move on to the enclosure and adding all the hardware there. But first, I'm going to sort out this sticker. Now, I don't often do stickers on the front of my pedals, and this seems a bit odd. I mean, I could. What do people think? Do I situate it going widthways and have the knobs sticking out of the actual reels of it, or do I do it that way? I'm looking at my camera screen. I really like it that way, but I know what people are going to say. They're going to say it looks odd, it looks off shape, whereas that looks like it's supposed to be there. And then maybe I could sign up here or something. Alright, well, we're going to go this way. You win. I'm talking to you, Craze Fandango. You know who you are. He hates me putting these things at the side here. Anyway. Let's get this situated on. First of all, I'm going to go and get my my square so then I can get this straight. Now it's time to get all the hardware on the enclosure. Got some nice alpha pots to go in there. My usual gold pin 3-pole double throw stomp switch. Yeah, should be good. Right, so I've got a little bit of a sticky situation here. Now this PCB is gonna go in like so. And I absolutely hate not being able to just wire everything up as I can see it. I know most people build pedals in small formats and deal with PCBs all the time. It's just not my thing. I like a tag board and I like to be able to see what I'm doing. But this is going to sit on top of our pots. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to screw the pots in. I'm just going to place them into the holes with some sticky foam on the top, like so. And same with this one. You can guess where I'm going here. This is the first time I've ever done this, so it may work, it may not. Some sticky foam at the top, and then I'm just going to lower down the PCB into the enclosure, so then it sits on top of them. And then this way, when I pull it out, the pots are now attached on the bottom of the board, exactly where they will be in the enclosure, and I can go ahead and just wire them up and then place it back in, and it should all line up correctly. Now, some people may have done this before. You may have been doing this sort of thing yourself. Great. This is the first time I've ever done it, and I'm made up that I just managed to get the pots to stick. Get on. Okay, so here's the moment of truth. I've got my 2 pots wired up on the back of the board. Let's see if they drop right in. If I can ever get the wires untangled, that is. Look at that. Get on. I'm pretty happy with that. Pleased with me little self. Looking at the way that the pots are situated, I'm really going to have to try and find some knobs for these bottom ones that are unobtrusive. So like maybe some slimline metal silver knobs. I think I've got some hanging about somewhere there. I don't want to obscure the artwork because I'm a fan of that old videotape aesthetic. Pretty cool. And there we have it. Next step is to get all of these wires wired up. As most of our wires wired up, I've just got to get this live onto the LED, wire up our earths to the earth lug on our 9-volt jack, and the inputs and outputs going to our stomp switch, and then the little loop at the back here that I always forget, the true bypass loop. I'll add that in, of course I will, and then we'll move on to the current limiting resistor for our LED. You see this slot here for the 4.7K. That is what Demedash uses, and he would have just run that wire out. And there's a slot here for your LED, but just because I like to do it where I fix the LED using the resistor to the stomp switch. Don't worry, I'm going to film my first pedal build tutorial soon. But anyway, I'll get in, I'll wire all this up, and then hopefully we can move on to a sound sample. So our wiring now complete. The last thing to do is to add in our current limiting resistor for our LED. In honour of the fact that Steve Demedash put down a 4.7K, I'm going to use a 4.7K flame-proof resistor. Flame-proof? Metal oxide. Not flame-proof. I've got that on the brain because I've been ordering resistors for my 64, 65 Showman. In fact, I'm not sure whether 64 or 65. We'll find out when I pull the chassis out and have a look at the transformers, eh? Right, so once this is in, the next step is to discuss op amps. Now, Steve mentions details that it should be a TLO72 in this, which you know, as many of you will know, that's an oops. As many of you will know, that's an op amp that I do favour. So we will test it with one of them if I've got one in. Running rather low on quite a few things over this Christmas period. Yeah, if we've got one in, but if not, I've got like a really cool op amp I want to try out. So let's see where we are. That is us wired up and ready to go. Before we do anything, I'm going to get the knobs on. These are the knobs we're going to go with. The nice slim line and silver, so they don't obscure the Demedash artwork, which is what I wanted. Now, as far as op amps go, I clearly didn't have a TLO72. Somehow, I'm sure I've got a bag of them somewhere. So the first op amp that's going to go in there is this. It's a Texas Instruments JRC, or a Texas Instruments RC4558P, which is just a dual op amp. And then the other one that is going to go in there is this OPA 627, which is a single op amp. So this is a SMT op amp that's been soldered onto one of them larger PCBs, so it'll go into a normal size socket. But it's an OPA op amp, but it's two single op amps soldered together on one board to make a dual op amp. I really like the idea of this. I think it's pretty cool, and OPA tends to make some pretty damn good op amps. Or Bear Brown under the OPA appendage at the front of their op amp serial numbers or whatever product codes. First of all, I'm going to try the JRC 455 or the RC 4558, and then we'll try the two single op amps wired together. Now it's time to find out how you can win this guitar effects pedal. All you need to do is scroll down a page a little bit until you find a button that says remix. You share a 5-second clip as a YouTube short with a little message on there somewhere that tells me why you deserve to win this pedal more than anyone else, and I'll ship you the pedal absolutely free. And now on to the sound sample. I'd like to know what you think of each of the op amps that I try in this pedal. Let me know in the comments which you prefer.